Fable and Mythos are back online after 3 weeks of the most powerful AI models on Earth being switched off, not by a bug, not by a billing issue, by the United States government. Anthropic got its models back on July 1st. Good news, right? Here's the problem. The deal that brought them back quietly rewired who actually controls the AI your product runs on. And if your automation stack treats a frontier model like infrastructure, like electricity that never goes out, this video is the cold shower you need before the next blackout. Because there will be a next one. Quick timeline, because most of the coverage skipped the part that matters. On June 12th, Anthropic disabled access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 after a jailbreak discovery. That's from Anthropic's own statement. For roughly 3 weeks, the smartest models on the market were dark. Then on July 1st, according to Anthropic and Al Jazeera, the U.S. Commerce Department lifted the export controls after Anthropic reached an agreement with the Commerce Secretary. Models restored, headlines moved on. But if you build products on top of these APIs, and if you're watching this channel, you probably do, the interesting question isn't why did it go down, it's what did it cost to bring it back. So here's the claim. The government switched off an American AI company's flagship models inside America. Sounds like clickbait. Your skeptic alarm should be going off. Mine did. Was this actually a government shutdown, or did Anthropic just pull the plug on itself to patch a jailbreak? Here's what the record shows. The shutdown announcement came from Anthropic on June 12th, citing a jailbreak discovery, but the restoration didn't come from a patch note. It came from the Commerce Department lifting export controls. CNBC corroborated the timeline on June 30th. Al Jazeera confirmed it on July 1st. You don't need export controls lifted to fix a jailbreak. You need export controls lifted because export controls were applied. That's the tell. This wasn't a security patch cycle, it was a regulatory action with a security trigger, and it happened fast. No deprecation window, no migration guide, no sunset in 90 days. One day the models were there, the next day, gone. If you've ever complained about a provider deprecating an endpoint with 6 months notice, this was 0. 3 weeks dark. That's longer than most startups' runway math allows for a core dependency being down. Every retry queue, every SLA, every the AI writes the first draft workflow, dead in the water, or limping on a fallback the team never load tested. But, and this is the beat most coverage buried, the restoration came with context. On June 2nd, the White House had issued an executive order on advanced AI, a so-called voluntary framework, where Frontier Labs give the government a 30-day pre-release window with trusted partners. That word, voluntary, is doing Olympic-level gymnastics, because here's the sequence. Framework announced June 2nd. Anthropic's models forced dark June 12th. Restored July 1st after an agreement with the Commerce Secretary. So what exactly do you call a voluntary framework where declining coincides with your product going offline for 3 weeks? Right, voluntary. Like a pop quiz is voluntary, because technically you can hand in a blank page. Before anyone files this as an anti-government rant, it isn't. There's a real security argument here. A jailbreak on a frontier model is genuinely dangerous, and Anthropic's own statement treats it seriously. The point isn't whether the government should have this switch. The point is that the switch exists, it's been used, and it worked. That's a fact about your infrastructure now. The precedent is set. Model availability is a negotiation between labs and the state, and you, the builder, are not at the table. Now, the obvious pushback. That's one company, one weird month. Anthropic drama. So let's test that. June 26th, 5 days before Anthropic's models came back, CNBC reported that OpenAI limited its GPT 5.6 rollout to trusted partners at the request of the US government. Customer by customer approval. TechCrunch ran the same story with a headline that says it all. It's not about Anthropic versus OpenAI anymore. 2 labs, same month, same pattern. The government deciding who gets access to frontier models and when. Then look across the Atlantic. The EU spent that same month finalizing its AI Act rework. The Council approved delayed enforcement for high-risk rules on June 29th, while locking in a hard ban with €35 million fines starting this December for certain generated content. Different tools, same direction. Every major jurisdiction is building a control layer between you and the model. So the question stops being, will governments touch my AI stack? They already did, twice, in 1 month, in the US alone. The question is whether your architecture assumes it can't happen again, and most stacks I see, they assume exactly that. One provider, one API key, a hard-coded model string, no fallback evals, no plan. That's not an architecture. That's a bet that Washington, Brussels, and a jailbreak researcher all stay quiet at the same time. Here's where I put my automation builder hat on. At TRAMA, we build and run AI automations for real businesses, customer service flows, document pipelines, sales follow-up. When the blackout hit, the difference between the stacks that shrugged and the stacks that bled was decided months earlier. In architecture reviews, nobody thought were urgent. And here's the nasty part. A model going dark doesn't fail loudly. Queues back up, retries retry. Cost spike on the fallback nobody tuned, and the status dashboard? Green, because your infra is fine. It's the intelligence layer that's gone. Everything is fine. The AI just isn't there. So after 3 weeks of running client automations through a frontier model blackout, we consolidated what actually kept workflows alive into a checklist. Not theory, battle notes. That's what you get next. Here it is, the blackout-proof stack. 3 layers. Layer 1, model agnostic by contract. Your code never calls the model, it calls a capability. Summarize, extract, decide. Through an abstraction layer, and a routing table decides which model serves it today. Primary lab, secondary lab, and an open weights model you can run yourself as the floor. The floor model will be worse, that's fine. Degraded beats dead. Layer 2, the one everyone skips, eval parity tests. A fallback you've never evaluated is not a fallback, it's a hope. Take 20 to 50 real tasks from your production traffic, run them against your fallback chain on a schedule, score them, alert when the gap widens. It's boring, it's an afternoon of work. It's also the difference between we switched providers in an hour, and we spent the blackout discovering our fallback hallucinates order numbers. Layer 3, read the suspension clauses. Your provider's terms already say they can cut access for security or legal reasons. That clause used to be lawyer decoration. As of June 12th, it's a tested feature. So pre-write the degradation playbook, which features flag off first, what the customer-facing message says, who flips the switch, and that's the whole video in one line. Treat frontier models like a supplier, not like physics. Suppliers have outages, contracts, and governments. Physics doesn't. The labs learned that the hard way this month. Builders who don't learn it secondhand will learn it live. Quick recap, because this moved fast. Fable and Mythos went dark June 12th after a jailbreak discovery. That part's from Anthropic itself. They came back July 1st, not with a patch, with a deal. Export controls lifted after an agreement with the Commerce Secretary, under a voluntary framework announced June 2nd. OpenAI got the same treatment the same month. GPT 5.6, trusted partners only per CNBC. The EU tightened its own layer in parallel. Government-gated model access is no longer a hypothetical. It's the operating environment. And the answer isn't panic. It's 3 layers, capability routing instead of hard-coded models, eval parity tests, so your fallback is proven instead of hoped, and a degradation playbook written before you need it. The blackout was a warning shot you didn't have to pay for. The labs paid. Take the free lesson. Now the part where you get something back. Drop a comment with your stack's single point of failure, the one model, vendor, or API key everything secretly depends on. I read them, and I'll reply with the first fallback I'd wire in for your setup. Model options, rough cost, the works. A free architecture review, 1 comment deep. If this saved your future self a very bad week, subscribe. The next government versus lab round is already warming up. See you in the next one.